The Orlando Magic's double dip in Los Angeles is over. So what did we learn about this team? And what's real and what's not as the Magic finish this road trip? We'll get to that. Plus, the return of Khobi Price on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is or will be November 2nd, 2023. I'm probably going to publish this on November 1st. That's how it goes. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, I buried the lead there in the start. We will be joined by former Orlando Sentinel reporter, current reporter for Southern California News Group and Orange County Register, Khobi Price, going to talk to us about his observations from watching the Magic in their two games in Los Angeles, what he sees in this Magic team, how they've grown, where they're still going to struggle, and how they measure up to a team like the Lakers. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Don't forget, too, that the Orlando Magic play the Utah Jazz tonight at 9 Eastern time. Catch every shot, every play of the Orlando Magic's hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just one X there. Search Orlando Magic. Looking forward to that game tonight. I'll also be broadcasting that game on the PSF app for a watch along. So if you're watching the game or listening to the game, come hang out with me as well. You can check that out at PSF. But before we dive into our conversation with Khobi, I want to just chat a little bit about where the Magic are at, and kind of how we should be feeling. It's been a little bit of a wild week because it's been a week since the season started. 4 games in, wild week. It's been a little bit of a wild week. The Magic, in one regard, have looked very, very impressive, and they've got the second best defense in the league at the moment, entering Wednesday's games, which may mean something, may not mean anything, but it is what it is. But obviously, and I wanted to get Khobi on to talk about this as well, these 2 games against Los Angeles represented the first time we're going to see this team against quality opponents. And there are plenty more quality opponents coming. We got Utah on Thursday. Not going to neglect them. Going to be a very difficult game. Magic should want to win it, go 2-2 on this road trip, but so on and so forth. But we'll see the Lakers again on Saturday, the Mavericks on Monday, the Hawks, who are playing very well to start the season, in Mexico City, very tough place, and then Milwaukee next Saturday. So schedule is going to stay tough, and we knew this schedule was going to be tough. But I think that the Lakers and Clippers game did reveal a few things about this team. One, we know this team is going to defend at a high level. The question is, and this is going to be the question for the entire season, is how far can that defense take us? How far can that defense take you? Because I think a lot of Magic fans have focused in and centered on, okay, this team is going to struggle offensively, but how much? And certainly Paolo Banchero struggles, which we do get into, and Franz Wagner's struggles to be efficient early on this season have exacerbated some of the problems that we saw with this Magic team. Offense was a real struggle against the Clippers. I think the Magic had a 98 offensive rating in that game. It wasn't just about that they shot 7 for 30 from 3, which isn't good. Everyone acknowledged that wasn't good. That isn't good enough. They still need to keep shooting threes. The 19 for 33 free throw shooting was the absolute killer. Honestly, that's why they lost the game. They were 7 for 14 in the third quarter. Again, when the Clippers outscored them 41-21, those misses gutted the team and their intensity and their focus and just their outlook. And so where do we stand? Well, the first thing I want to mention is we stand record-wise exactly where we thought we were going to stand. This team is 2-2. If you would have told me this team is 2-2 after 4 games, I would have said, yeah, that probably checks and would probably be exactly in the way we thought. Beat Houston, beat Portland, lose to the 2 LA teams. The Clippers game feels bad. 118-102 loss. It feels bad. But it very well could have been just one bad night. The Magic are going to get their fair share of open shots. Teams are not afraid of them shooting, but the Magic missed a lot of open shots in that game. And so the question is going to remain, can the Magic produce enough offense to make their defense work? That is the question. That is the central thesis of the season. Because I feel very confident saying after 4 games, this defense is very good. This defense is going to be competitive. They're going to keep the Magic in a lot of games. Eventually, Paolo is going to find his way out of this malaise. Eventually, the Magic are going to find their groove. And it may mean changing the lineup a little bit. It may mean changing the rotation. It may mean tightening some things. It may mean some tweaks. But it is still far too early in the season to give up the ship. Far too early in the season to give up on anything. Honestly, still far too early in the season to make wholesale changes. There's still something here. There's something to grow. There's something to build. And the Magic have every opportunity to do so. With that, let's bring in Khobi Price and hear what he has to say after watching the Magic the last 2 nights in Los Angeles. And we are happy to welcome back into the Orlando Magic media landscape our good friend Khobi Price of the Southern California Media Group and Orange County Register. Khobi, you got a chance to see the Magic the last 2 nights. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's mostly good, but sometimes bad. How's it going on the left coast there?
Yeah. I caught up with them, Lakers, Clippers. Oh, wow. Lakers, Clippers is tonight. Lakers Magic, Clippers Magic.
We all play in these like little pods. Like I noticed this too. Like I'm watching teams and it's like, oh, they're next on the schedule and they're playing another team that we have next on the schedule. So it can be weird like that.
Yeah, by the time this weekend's, I would have been in person for like 3 Magic games in like 6 or 7 days. Feels like I haven't left.
Look, I as someone who has watched 82 Magic games a year for my entire life, but mostly the last decade, I would not suggest doing that most times, most days, most years. But this year, maybe that's an okay thing. You saw two interesting games, with the Magic out in Los Angeles. Obviously, West Coast trips are weird, and Orlando. I think Brian Hill made this point on the Magic's broadcast on Valley Sports Florida that it's tough to be in one spot for 4 days when you're on vacation or on a road trip like the Magic are, and they've been in Los Angeles since Saturday, so maybe there's a little cabin fever to get out. But in those 2 games, what was your overall impression on where the Magic are at and how they're growing and developing?
Yeah, I think one of the first impressions is I can feel the maturity level. Just being around the team last season, or the season before and last season to this season, I can feel a rise in the maturity level. Understanding everything, there's precision is on a different level in terms of how things are run. Just a greater understanding, and it's in like all the small details that you can pick up on the floor. They seem like they're able to get themselves out of situations a little bit better, executing game plan just a little bit better. Everything to me is everything's just risen a level in terms of understanding. Now you talk about some of the skill set stuff. Now we can get into it. That's maybe a different conversation, but just in terms of game plan execution, understanding, that seems to have gone up a level. They seem crisper, and that's just it's like a very general statement, but that's the one thing I've noticed from last season this season. It's just a crisper flow, very comparable to how they ended last season. But even then, just a steady rise in terms of just how the execution goes, especially defensively.
Yeah, and obviously, as we're sitting here prepping for Wednesday night's games, Orlando is second in the league in defensive rating. Still very, very early in the season, and they've had their worst defensive game of the year, Tuesday night against the Clippers. But it is, as they say, everything is something. Not everything is anything, but I think
you broke my rule, Phil. I do not look at stats until at least 5 games in, preferably 10. You broke my rule.
It is early. It is very, very early. And as I noted, as I think we all noted to people when the Magic started 2-0, the last time they started 2-0 was the 2021 season. And of course, Magic fans know that year they won 22 games. They won 20 more games that season. So it is still very, very early, but I agree with you. I think there is a heightened attention to detail defensively. I think, let's talk about the team you covered, the Lakers, more specifically. In that game on Monday, there were a lot of moments where Orlando got down and were able to kind of claw their way back in. I noted it immediately when the Magic fell down by double digits I think it was the first quarter. It was the first time they lost a quarter all year, I believe. And it was their first double-digit deficit of the year. And it was like, okay, this is a little bit of a gut check moment for them going up against a quality team on the Lakers. I know the Lakers are still kind of figuring themselves out here early in the season, but they got LeBron, they got AD, D'Angelo Russell's a former All-Star. That is, even with all the injuries they're facing right now, that is still a very good team, a Western Conference finalist from last year. That is a good measuring stick to say, okay, how can we compete against a team like that? And I do feel like the Magic did a very good job responding and taking really control of that game. And I think Jamal Mosley made a really good point that, while yes, there was some struggles executing late in the game, that game was really lost on that 9-0 run late in the third quarter when Orlando had an 8-point lead and a chance to stretch it out. And the Lakers were able to close with a flurry, make it a close game, take the lead entering the fourth quarter, and make that a game where, obviously the Magic don't have a lot of experience in those late game situations or experience against quality opponents in late game situations, and weren't able to close that out. And, certainly, again, had I think a 4-point lead with 3.5 minutes to play, weren't able to kind of execute down the stretch. Just on that note, then I don't want to do the compare and contrast quite yet. I do want to get to that, but what is the next level that this team needs to reach then, knowing that, hey, they've appear to have taken some steps and found kind of a foundation to what they're doing?
Yeah, I think the foundation is set. At least to me, it's pretty well set. Being around the team the past few years, they very much have been defensive. The identity is going to be based off their defense and just playing at a high level, being able to swarm, keep teams out the paint, limit feet set threes. We can go down the list of, the identity.
All the coachisms.
Yeah, all the coaches. There we go. All the coachisms. But you actually see that. I saw that. And yes, the Lakers were able to get to. If I'm remembering correctly, they were able to actually get into the paint pretty well. But that's also what they do well as a team. So that's one of the things you have to remember. Yes, you have a game plan that you want to execute, but some teams can kind of just throw your game plan over the top rope because that's an area where they excel. When you have players like Anthony Davis, who's able to Christian Wood had a big game against the Magic. Those bigger, make people talk about how big and tall the Magic are. The Lakers have some big guys too, big and physical guys. There's AD, Christian Wood, LeBron. I don't think Jackson Hayes got a whole lot of playing time in that game, but actually, I think he got a fair amount.
He got a little bit.
Yeah, he got a little bit. I'm thinking of the Sacramento game. Excuse me. But when you have that physicality, you're matching physicality with physicality. And the Lakers, I think they pushed the Magic in a certain regard in terms of that. And it also helped the Lakers that, D'Lo had one of his better games. I think, honestly, his best game of the season so far. So when you're able to get that kind of guard play for the Lakers, that's significant. Going to the Magic side, for them, it's just those runs. It's just being able to figure out, at least offensively, how do you get out of it quicker? That's the one thing that I was watching the Clippers last night against the Magic. That was a slugfest to start. But what caught my attention was just watching it live. Is Russ, even though he was struggling with his shot, he was able to get that Clippers team just getting out of that rut in an instant. And next thing you know, Paul George is starting to flow. Got the offense running a little bit more crisper. So I think that's going to be the next level for the team. How do you get out of that slog quicker to prevent maybe a 9-0 run is instead now a 5-0 run, and you cut it off because you realize, all right, this is what we need to do. We need to push this now, or we need to slow it down. And those are a very small detail, but that can be the difference between, like I said, a 9-0 run versus a 5-0 run, and then a 3-point loss. those 4 points can be, that could be a win versus a loss, and you feel completely different about the outcome of the game.
Yeah, and again, I think that this team has matured, and I think we could feel that in the way they talk and the way that they played. But there's still another level of maturity they have to go to, and I think even late in the game, like I would like against the Lakers, like I think Jalen Suggs made the correct play, the correct read, pump on the second to last drive with the Magic down by 1. He pump faked Austin Reeves, was able to get in the paint, try to attack Anthony Davis, which is a tough thing to do, but to me, it felt like his eyes got bigger than his stomach a little bit, and just everything was moving just a little bit too fast for him. Which again, a pressure situation, you got to be able to kind of calm and poise yourself. The same deal when you're facing, a LeBron run, a Paul George run, which is what we saw against the Clippers when George just started going off, and you just got to know, okay, we just got to weather this storm. We don't have to match him point for point. We just have to first find a way to slow him down, find a way to mix up our coverages to kind of get him out of rhythm. And B, find a little bit of offense just to keep us afloat until that run subsides. And that's what the Magic didn't do, I think, Tuesday night particularly well, is they didn't have the pet play they could go to make sure they get a point or make sure they get a good look or make sure they get to the foul line. And then on top of that, the Magic just missed so many free throws in that game. Orlando started free Chick-fil-A. Hey, we got to give the people what they want. We got to give the people what they want. We'll get back to our conversation with Khobi Price here in just a moment. But first, it's a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. Look, PrizePicks is the most fun I've ever had playing daily fantasy sports. I've had my chance to win 25 times my money, but the best part about PrizePicks is you have the chance to win. It may not be the big prize, but you're not swimming uphill against the sharks, against all the difficulties of those other daily fantasy games. With PrizePicks, it's just you versus the numbers. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections too across football and basketball from the Specials League. That's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can take LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. You get to do a lot of fun picks like that too, or just do your traditional picks saying that you believe Paolo Banchero will finally break through and score more than 19.5 points or whatever the number is. I don't know if they posted the numbers yet because Utah's playing literally right now as I'm recording this. PrizePicks is your way to make the most of your sports knowledge. All you have to do is pick more or less than the PrizePicks projections. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, the player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy like this. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA, that's 2 N's, for a first deposit match of up to $100. Orlando started the year against Houston and Portland. And I think a lot of us kind of understood that while, yes, beating those kinds of teams, no offense to Houston and Portland, beating those kinds of teams is what this Magic team has to do better and be consistent at, and doing that is a thing. But we all knew heading into this back-to-back in Los Angeles that we were going to learn a lot about this team, or a lot more about this team. I mean, you probably don't have the frame of reference to those first 2 games, but what would you say is the big lesson for the Magic now leaving Los Angeles, heading to Salt Lake City, heading to Utah and the rest of their schedule? And obviously the Lakers are coming up on Saturday as well. What is the big lesson that the Magic learned from these pair of games?
Yeah, before I actually answer that, you made a point that I wanted to come back to about the maturity level. That is to me, it's much higher, or it's significantly higher, or notably higher from last season. The one thing I forget who what it may have been Jamal. I don't know if it was Jamal. So I'm not going to credit any. I'm not going to say what coach it was who said this, but I remember a coach said, make quick decisions, but don't play fast. Like, be quick with what you do, but it's not a rush. Like, that's the mastering that skill of being quick but not fast with it. That can be like, it may not make sense, but once you get it, you got it. And that seems like the thing that the Magic are going to have to fully understand. Get. Like, sometimes even watching the game against the Clippers, and that's more fresh in my mind because I just saw it. Like, it seemed like there were moments where they wanted to just fast, go now.
And they're young. That's a young player thing.
It is. And I know they want to push. Like, I know they want to push the pace and push for them for what their struggles are too, especially in the half court. Pushing the pace will be like that's beneficial more often than not. But sometimes you can push it, and if it's not working, all right, let's circle back. Let's make sure we get, especially in those ruts. Let's make sure we get something like a what do you call it, like a fail safe, whatever the phrase is.
Yeah, just you find an outlet. Like you gotta, yeah.
An outlet to just be like, we need something guaranteed just to get something on the board, and then now we can set up our defense instead of having to, be backpedaling again or playing this track race. So I watched a little bit of those first two games. I like to watch the opposing team, before the game, and to me, like the level of competition that the Blazers and Rockets, respectfully, can offer compared to the Lakers is just not comparable. But even against the Blazers, you could see there were times where the Magic started to bog down. And I think for them, like we saw against the Clippers, saw against the Lakers. There's going to be moments where teams are going to figure out, or just execute better up. Like, let's be honest, this isn't the best shooting team. They have those struggles from the outside, and a lot of these guys are going to get inside the paint or drive or find a way to just, like I said, get to the rim. So if we can shut that down or close it off or act like we don't have to worry about a certain guy on the perimeter or certain guys out there, then that'll make defensively that makes your life easier. Or maybe our closeouts aren't going to be as hard, so you're not going to get that driving lane that may be open. That's going to be a battle that the Magic have to go battle with, and against teams who aren't as good, those details may not be as crisp, or they may not be as good as executing as like higher level teams like the Clippers or the Lakers. But yeah, that's going to be just a tug back and forth, especially with the first unit. I will say, watching the second unit in the Clippers game, and even a little bit to an extent the Lakers game, it felt like that unit it's been running smoother, at least offensively. Especially against the Clippers game, it felt like that's where the Magic started.
I know it goes against your rules, but the numbers back that up.
Yeah. No, I don't. No, this is not a numbers game. This is purely. This is Hooper versus basketball player talk right here. Nah, it's it's just purely. Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's purely just it seems like there was a better flow. Especially, I know what J.I. didn't play against the Clippers, so when you had Franz with that second unit, so I think it was Cole, Gary, Joe, Franz, Mo. Like, there was a certain zip that group just had, and they had, in that group you just have better spacing more often than not. Like statistically, the percentage-wise from three, the worst shooters would be either Mo or Cole, and those are both shooters you have to respect. So just in terms of just reputation, so there's just a little bit more zip, a little bit more. Mo got a few of those dunks. I think Franz was able to start getting himself going more so with that second unit than the starting unit. So that's the one thing you can kind of see. I guess the offensive vision, if you want to say, or like the benefits, but it's also you have to make that same vision or similar vision work with the starting unit. So that's going to be a battle, because I think in that second unit you have a little bit more spacing, at least based off current construction or from that last game. And I know it's going to change with how J.I.'s availability. I'm not sure about how that goes. It's not my job.
Nope, not your job. Not your job to worry about him anymore.
Not my job, so I do not know what that is. But you just see a different openness and a way that defenses have to respect them with that second unit versus the first unit.
And we couch everything by saying it's still very early in the season. I think the Magic are still very much figuring their rotations out. You probably noticed this, but there isn't a lot of blending between the two lineups. Like, there's a full bench group, there's a full starting group. They were doing that. They were doing that in the preseason. They've kind of carried that over. And Tuesday night with Isaac out was the first time that like Franz played a significant number of minutes with that bench group. And you could tell there was a little bit of a difference, that the first quarter obviously was a rock fight, 31 total points, I think, in the first quarter against the Clippers. The second quarter, you started to see the Magic assert themselves a little bit more offensively and find the bottom of the basket a little bit more frequent. I think it was like 31-30 in the quarter. I think in the Magic's favor, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I have that number wrong, but yeah, you could definitely tell there's a little bit more spacing, a little bit more fluidity with those shooters on the floor, and I think that forces us to ask kind of the big question I think a lot of Magic fans are asking, and you spent a lot of time with him last year. You did a lot of that kind of tape study with him. What do you think's wrong with Paolo? Is it just the spacing is bad and he's driving into crowds a lot more? Like, did something feel off to you with the way Paolo was playing? Because certainly Magic fans, the numbers say that too, but certainly something feels off about it.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to, I think it's kind of twofold. I think one, I think there's a different rhythm that he's having to establish with himself. One, that's like the one thing that I think people forget, and you see it talked about a little bit more in like NFL. I feel like the NBA is teams have a full tape of Paolo now. Like, teams have what he played 72 games, 72, 73.
Missed fewer than 10 games. It was like 8 games, I think.
Yeah, he played. I mean, and not just that, he played 72. Yeah, 72 from last year, and he played. I want to say, like almost every game from December onward. Maybe he missed once on the end of the season. I want to say, but
I think he missed a couple games after they shut everyone down to end the season.
Yeah. So there's a lot of tape on Paolo. They have a better idea of his tendencies. They have a better idea of what he wants to get to, how his play style. Like, I think you just have to. There's that reality part of it. So teams are better equipped to defend him individually. Two, he's dealing with different spacing. If we're going to be honest, I would say worse spacing. If you want to go from like Wendell had I think Wendell shot 36-ish% on threes last season on pretty decent volume.
Something like that.
Wendell shot, I think it was his best shooting season from beyond the arc at 35.6, so close enough, 35.6 on nearly 4 attempts last season. Yet it seems like teams are still playing off of him. And then they're willing to let him take those shots from beyond the arc. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing in terms of the defensive decision, but that's just the reality of how teams are defending him, and that's just going to, and the players who are defending Wendell are just bigger. So if you have a bigger guy sag off, then it just makes it harder for maybe Paolo to get into the paint. Also, the other thing I noticed it's a little bit more in the yesterday. I think Paolo with his ball. I maybe should ask you this before we start the show, but Paolo's ball security, I know sometimes last season it seemed like he lost the ball a decent amount, just maybe whether it's the handle or just driving in. But especially last night against the Clippers, it seemed like Russ was able to, on fast breaks or like maybe like smaller guards were able to like disrupt him or like knock the ball away from him. And those are like, especially on a fast break or transition, those are like, talking about like 2 points here and there. So instead of having like, what do you end up with last night, like 13 or 15? You could have
15,
19 maybe. Those are just a couple, easier shots that you could get. So there's something there, but I think a lot of it is going to like spacing his shots out there. Like it's almost one of those. There's not one singular thing that I'm noticing here. It's just like almost everything. And it's also, I don't feel like the offense is being run so. At least from watching it, not really asking anybody about it, just watching it, it seems like it's a equal opportunity offense. If you're open, go ahead, go for opportunity. And
they're not getting the ball in his spots.
Yeah, last night was the first time I felt like there was a little bit more purpose getting him the ball in his spots.
I agree with that.
Especially compared to the Lakers game. Like I said, I didn't watch the entire Portland Rockets game.
And some of that's I'll cut you off a little bit. Your perception's right. Like it definitely felt like, I think the first play of the game against the Clippers was like a design post up for him. Like there was definitely a purpose to get him involved. And, he still had 8 free throw attempts, which is about his was his average last year. Like he's still a free throw machine, but he definitely, I think he's struggling. I think there's a lot of focus on this being an equal opportunity offense. They want to be an offense where everybody can attack. And, Paolo's assists are up, early this season. He's had a couple 5-assist games already. There's definitely, it feels like he understands he's soaking up some attention and is trying really hard to make the right play. And, I think a lot of stars, or at least, kind of the selfless stars, they struggle sometimes to learn, when do I need to get mine and when do I need to make sure others are involved? And that's kind of the trick. And right now, especially because Paolo is maybe not as confident in a shot as he should be, or he's not playing as confident in a shot as he should be. He's deferring a little too much. And I think that's part of the issue as well, if that makes sense.
It is. I noticed, like I said, just a couple other games. And some of the deferring, the first 2 games, not so much an issue because you're winning. And it's a little bit more, when you're not winning. I will say, I don't remember when exactly this happened, but there was a play against the Clippers. And like I said, there were other plays against the Lakers I noticed, but Clippers, fresh on my brain. Yeah. It's 24 hours ago, so I'm able to remember. But there was a play against the Clippers. He got a smaller guy on him. I forget who it was. It was like one of the Clippers guards. And he bumped in, maybe 1 or 2 bumps, and just laid it in. Easy layup.
Yep, I remember that play.
It was, and there are a few things I noticed about that play. One, if he took one more bump, Mason Plumlee may have blocked him. I think it was Mason Plumlee Mason was guarding. It may have been I don't know. It wasn't when it was Cole. He was guarding. I think it was in transition, and that's how you get the mismatch. He was guarding Cole, and he came off of Cole. And, you see a lot, guys will just attack, especially in mismatch, will just come down, help, and just see if they can get the block. And if Paolo didn't, it took one more dribble or one more bump, he would have probably got blocked, or maybe he got fouled, whatever it may be. There would have been a better contest on that. But it's the quick decisiveness allowed him to get the easy shot, get the easy look. So that's one thing I noticed. When Paolo's quick and decisive, I think he's just better. Sometimes it seems like he has a tendency of, probing and just like, all right, what should I do? What's the move? No, it's just like, dude, you are 6'10", 250, just go. You have the strength and size to do it. Second thing is using that strength and size to your advantage. There were some times in that game against the Clippers where I thought, hey man, you may be matching up against, maybe I think Kawhi mainly guarded.
I think that's right. Yeah.
For the most part, but there'd be times where he would get like another guy on him. Hey, you have the size and advantage. Like, you don't have to fade away. You can try to force the issue a little bit more, try to get inside. He would sometimes take the bump and he would go right to the fadeaway. No, get a little bit deeper in, a little bit deeper post position if that's where you're going to go to, and see what you can get. Your shot may not be there, but just try to get something a little bit easier for yourself. So to me, that's also decision making, being a little bit more physical in certain moments so you can force the issue and force the refs. You're already against the free throw line. You say 8 times a game. Maybe you get to 10 or 11, and then
especially when your shot's not going down. Like
exactly.
I know some people think he may have tweaked his shot a little bit. It's been a struggle for him to get shots, and look, he's missing layups too, which he doesn't typically miss. He had a couple really seemingly easy blown layups in Tuesday's game. When you're the stars all know this, and that when your shot's not going down, get to the line. Just keep, the goal is keep putting pressure on the defense. So even if you're not scoring, the defense still has to account and worry about you.
Right. That's the one, like I said, he's gone to the line, what do you say, 7, 8 times a game. I could see him getting there 10 times, 11 times. And that's, again, a detail that you feel like he's already getting there 8 times. Well, if he can get there 10, 11 times, maybe that helps him get into a better rhythm. Maybe not from 3, but on some of those more intermediate shots. For mid-range or those fadeaways, just so he can see the ball go through the net. Then you get the free throw shooting. He's not that's the thing that's addressed again early in the season. He's shooting 54% on free throws.
It's 14 for 26. I want to say now.
So 54%.
Yeah.
There's no running around the fact that's just not good. That those are free shots. If what did he shoot last year? 73.
73, yeah. And we expected that to get to 75 this year.
Yeah, so if he's taking 14 of 26, if he's knocked down 19 or 18 of 26, that's just a few more points. That can be a difference in a couple of games. So or for the long haul this season. So you asked me what's wrong with Paolo. It's just, and then the layups, not going down. I know he mentioned that, he got the thumb injury with Team USA, and he mentioned that was still bothering him at media day. I don't, you would know better than me if that's still a thing, if whatever it may be. But maybe that's still a thing. I don't know. But you add all this together, you get a guy who, that's not even get to the spacing differences. I alluded to it with, Mason helping off. Guys helping off more. They're clogging the paint a little bit more, clogging lanes. That's, everything's just a little bit harder.
And this was the fear of adding Jalen Suggs to the starting lineup. I love Jalen Suggs. I understand why the Magic have him in the starting lineup, and I don't think they're going to move off of it because largely that lineup is still working really well. Suggs is kind of the heartbeat of their defense, and they put a lot of eggs into we're going to be a top 10 defense, and that's our ticket to make the play-in tournament. Essentially, is if we're I looked up the numbers today. All 10 of the top 10 defenses in the league last year made at least the play-in tournament. And 8 of the 10 made the playoffs proper. Were in the playoff field. So the bet, the gamble is with Jalen is he will make enough shots and be enough of a threat that our offense will function well enough to make to take advantage of whatever our defense is giving us. And again, they're 2-2 this season. One of their losses was at the buzzer. It was late game loss. The Magic aren't abandoning ship quite yet, but there's definitely a lot of concern. We'll be right back with Khobi to finish our conversation here in just a moment. But first, a quick word for our friends over at FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. I want to get you out of here on talking a little bit about the team you're covering. The Los Angeles Lakers are obviously, and we're going to see them again Saturday, so it's relevant to Magic fans as we look ahead to this weekend and the triumphant return to the Amway Center. But they're obviously a team that has a different level and a different expectation than this Magic team. No offense to the Magic, we're going to be happy to make the play-in tournament, be back to being somewhat relevant. The Lakers' success this season is probably defined by whether they win a championship or not. And that's what happens when you reach the Western Conference Finals. It doesn't matter what seed you are. When you reach the Western Conference Finals, there's only one place to go if you're going to improve, and that's to the finals. Coming from Orlando, going to an organization and being around a team like the Lakers, what is the biggest difference in kind of the atmosphere, the mood, the expectations? What's something different that maybe caught you when you started getting around this team?
I think the attention and the expectations, and not only me in a bad way. There's a microscope, to be quite frank. There's a microscope on every little thing that is said, that's done, that's not said, that's not done. So and I will say the one thing that I think Darvin Ham does well with is they take their work seriously, but it's not at the same time they're not super when you're in that kind of environment, it can be super tense if you allow it to be. But also I haven't felt like the super tense. I will compare, if you want to compare it, I think that there's still very much a process-oriented thought or process-oriented execution in terms of how they want the season to go. They've gone to 2-2 start. If you looked at those games to start the season over, you would say, maybe they can go 3-1. If bad things went poorly, they go 1-3. They could have lost to the Magic easily. They could have lost the other night. So more often than not, 2-2 to start is pretty solid for them. At the same time, they're not panicking. They're not, freaking out about anything. It's just more so they know that they're playing this for the long run. It's a lot of coach isms that maybe we heard from Jamal last year too. This is about a long a longer term look. But for them, they don't even mean long term in terms of like 3, 4, 4, 5 years. They mean like this is a long season. And I think with this group, it had been a while since they had a long, playoff run, and they're realizing, we have to be in certain places to be able to sustain, play from October all the way through, late April, May, and what their goal is to get to June. So I think you ask the differences. The differences, there's a different level of just hiding expectations and attention, but a similarity in the sense of keeping the focus on progress or process rather, and looking to make progress rather than getting it all together immediately. I think we asked about Jared Vanderbilt, who hasn't been available since the first preseason game back on October 7th, and he acknowledged, excuse me, it's early. We're not trying, we plan to have, a long season. We're not trying to rush this guy out there. Just because, I think Gabe Vincent is doubtful for tonight, I want to say, or he's on the injury report rather. And again, I think Gabe said in the preseason when he missed a few games with the back tightness or back soreness that he may have played if it was a certain, time of year. But again, they're taking the long run at it and not trying to just get guys out there. So there's definitely just let's make sure they're not taking the regular season for granted, but let's make sure we're good because, we know what it takes and we have to be, healthy. We have to be, they have to be healthy. They have to be, just a little bit more, I guess you want to say together in that sense, compared to last year. And they want to also do that while also, last year's Western Conference Finals run was, I want to say, remarkable in the sense of that team wasn't really together that long.
Yeah.
That team that played in the conference finals was not a team that, played together for a while. That was very much a team that was together from March or late February.
Late February, the trade deadline, yeah.
Yeah. And LeBron didn't come back until March. So it was really they really fast tracked things from March to the conference finals. So a lot of thought towards let's get our I think Darvin even mentioned it. He wants to do better in terms of just having the better rotation, or not better, but paying more attention to the rotation so guys can be a little bit more in rhythm and know who they're going to play alongside. That's a long-term thing. So it's not, guys aren't out of rhythm. They can get some familiarity with the teammates because as much continuity as they brought back from last season, that team from last season wasn't a team that had a lot of time together.
They caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not knocking the run. They got one of the all-time great players in LeBron James, and he's going to make things a lot easier and widen the margin for error in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he did. And even that I've noticed is at least to start the season, LeBron hasn't had, he hasn't been dominant to start the season.
Yeah.
But he's definitely, and this is what we spoke about, he's picking his spots a little bit more. And there's been a very, there was a whole thing about his minutes restriction, which he played 28 minutes one night, and he's played at least 30 the other 3 games.
You try and put a minute restriction on LeBron James when he wants to play.
Yeah, but yeah, he played 39 and I think 33 minutes back-to-back days, back-to-back games, back-to-back days. But there's definitely seems to be a little bit more recognition of easing the burden off of him. And he may want, I think there was that clip from the Denver game, you guys are not going to play point guard, right? And it's one of those, yes, LeBron, we know you can do everything.
Yes.
But it's not about what you can do. It's about what we need you to do in the moments, we need you to do them.
And Monday, I felt was a great example of that. He didn't have the greatest game on Monday. Probably, statistically one of the worst LeBron games against the Magic in a while. And still at the end of the game, fourth quarter, ball was in his hands. He's making decisions. He's making the plays that won them that game. And that's, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The Magic feel like they're in a constant sprint because we all know the margin between the 11 seed and the 10 seed is probably going to be very, very narrow. It's probably going to be very, very slim. And, if there's disappointment, it's, winning a game in Los Angeles is found money. It's stealing a game from a quality team. The
Right.
Lakers lose to the Magic. It's probably going to be yeah, that stunk, but it's not the end of the world. We're going to be fine. The Magic losing that game when they had a real chance to win, it's like, well, that one game could have major ramifications down the line. And that's, again, this team is still learning how to win. I would advise Magic fans, it's a marathon, not a sprint too. And that, they're building, Jamal Mosley, like you said about Darvin Ham, Jamal Mosley's like really good at keeping the big picture in focus and understanding, okay, this is where we're trying to go. We may take a few steps back here and there. We may slip and fall along the way, but we're going to get there eventually. And I thought like the last 2 years, especially, he's done very good at keeping that big picture in focus and sticking with things, knowing that it's going to pay off down the road. And now that at least the mentality is the Magic are in a play-in chase, which starts now. Like that's the truth of it. The play-in chase starts now. You can't get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff. You have to still look at things over long stretches and see where teams get better. And it seems like the Lakers have that perspective on things too.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Like I said, they're not taking each day for granted, but they're not overreacting to, a 4-game sample.
Which no one should.
Yeah, no one should. They're allowing the season to kind of come to them. And, to your point about LeBron, like he's in the moments they need him to, he's stepped it up. But they're also not trying to run him to the ground early and then, you don't have him late, or you have a compromised version of him late. I think it was Rob Pelinka said they worked with him and his, medical staff, team XYZ, to make sure he can get to the end. The end obviously is in the season, but really more deep into for them, the goal is to get him to do. And the thing that has to, like, we don't, I don't know if we take it for granted, but the thing is, like, we haven't seen a guy carry a load at this age, at this stage of his career, even if, Anthony Davis to me has stepped up. But even with AD stepping up, like AD is a more, at least how he's often used, a more dependent player than say LeBron. I don't even think that's an insult. That's not an insult. Like
big men are dependent on guards. Like that's always the reality.
Most of them. Like he's not a Joel Embiid. Or he's not a Jokic, and even so, he's not a Joel Embiid in terms of like setting up all the time. Self-creation in that sense. He's a little bit more help in that sense. But even with that, like you still have, LeBron, like you said, in those moments coming through. And you have, like I said, you can have D'Angelo Russell, that I think one of the most impressive things about D'Lo was when LeBron went out, maybe like early-ish in the fourth quarter, D'Lo was the one that had that, scoring floor. I think he maybe scored like 5-7 points to just keep the Lakers in it. So when then LeBron came in, they weren't out the game.
I think it was like there's like a 3-minute stretch where LeBron sat in that fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I do remember saying this. Orlando, I think, was up 5, and I was like, Orlando needs to extend this lead out to 9. They cannot let the lead. And I think when LeBron came back in, it was down to a 3-point Magic lead. So it's not like the Lakers picked up ground. They just held the boat steady and like that. Right. And the Magic, and I think this has been the struggle for the Magic, and this is just a learning how to win thing for on the Magic side. The Magic got to learn how to take these 5, 6, 7-point leads and extend them out to 12. And it'll give themselves that little bit of margin for error for when they go through their lulls. It's you give up a 9-2 run when you're up 5, you're down by 2. You give up a 9-2 run when you're up 12, you're up by 5. Like that's kind of the yo-yo you have to the tug of war you have to play here.
And conversely, on the Lakers side, in those moments, because it seems like they have been prioritizing, LeBron's minutes and making sure that he gets that little bit of rest, maybe in the fourth quarter. So in closing moments, he can be in the game and not push his minutes to like 38, 39 minutes, more so get to like maybe the mid 30s, like 33, 34. Having other guys like D'Angelo Russell step in those moments and they can, give you, 7 points like that. I know Austin Reeves hasn't had the best start to the season, but he's also a guy that you look for. Like, all right, can you get to the free throw line? Can you get into the paint? Just give us a little bit more. AD, here's a post up or two, so you can scrounge it out until LeBron comes in, and maybe we can lean on him a little bit more when he's a little bit fresher too, and he's not running himself down the entire fourth quarter or most of the fourth quarter in that sense, in those situations.
Yeah, and obviously a long way to go. The Magic will see the Lakers and be done with the Lakers on Saturday. So Khobi, I appreciate you hopping on the show and giving us an update and your perspective on what you saw from the Magic the last 2 nights. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday if you're making the trip to Orlando.
I am.
I'm excited. I'm excited to welcome you back into the Amway Center. I'm sure everyone will be very, very happy to see you. I know Magic fans are going to be very happy to see you on this show as well. If there are Magic fans who want to follow in the footsteps of Magic legends like Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard, where can they follow you and find your work?
Yes, my Twitter handle has not changed. I'm still Khobi _Price, KHOBI_PRICE on Twitter, X.
Whatever they call it.
Whatever the kids call it.
We got the new graphics now too, so
yeah, I saw it. When I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that, it freaked me out. But I was like, all right.
It did me too because they changed them today.
Okay, makes sense. November surprise. You can find me Southern California News Group. Owns like 11 different papers in this area. OC Register, LA Daily News. The list goes on. You can find my work on any of those sites. And still tweeting, still out here. I will be in Orlando for a minute. Yeah. They're about to get there. The Lakers side. This is going to be one of their first, this is their first real road trip.
It's a weird road trip too. It's like an east, and then they head east for like 2 games, and they head back west.
Yeah, Orlando, Miami, Houston.
Phoenix is in there.
Phoenix, yeah. For that, yeah. Phoenix is the first in-season tournament game. So
there you go.
That'll be fun. Yeah,
that'll be good times.
But yeah. Be in Florida for a minute, so looking forward to it. We got
a nice little cold front coming in for you. I think so. It'll be in the mid to low 70s.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Khobi, thanks for hopping on the show. Really, really appreciate you, and we'll see you in the NBA Finals after Saturday.
Absolutely. We want to speak that into existence.
I want to thank Khobi for jumping on and sharing his thoughts on the Orlando Magic before tonight's game between the Los Angeles Lakers and LA Clippers. You can, of course, check him out at the Orange County Register, the Los Angeles Daily News, if wherever you get Los Angeles Lakers coverage, if that's what you want to do. I hope I didn't touch a nerve by comparing him to Magic legends like Dwight Howard and Shaquille O'Neal. I couldn't come up with 2 other former Magic players who used to play for the Lakers, like Derek Strong or Brian Cook or Maurice Evans. Like it happens, guys. It happens. Or Brian Shaw even. There are a lot of Magic legends that played for the Lakers, and all of them, and we still love them all for the most part. Maybe not all of them. I don't know. But we'll see, obviously, the Lakers on Saturday. So Magic and Lakers getting to know each other very, very, very well this week. But I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the places on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Get updates during tonight's game from there, or join me on the PSF app. I'm actually going to be on the PSF app for a brief show at 6 o'clock, so you can bring your questions to there and watch me answer some questions there and break down the Magic of what we've seen so far. Or you can also join me for a live watch-along of the game starting at 8:45 p.m. Eastern time. Again, that's on the PSF app. That's Pro Sports Fans. Check it out today. Join that Magic chat group, and you'll be able to join the live watch-along during the game on Thursday. If that doesn't float your boat, don't forget you can check out every play of the Orlando Magic's hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Here, Jake Chapman, who we had on the show last week, hear his call every game. Search Orlando Magic. Game again, the Magic play the Jazz tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern time to close this 4-game road trip. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.